like have to prove myself everywhere. I have to prove myself as an educator, have to prove myself, even like with the qualities that I wrote down, like of a loving man, like prove myself as a loving man. All it's almost like it's ingrained in my brain of like this necessity to keep proving myself all the time. And when I really look deeper in what's behind that necessity, it's actually just a necessity to feel love, to feel a sense of belonging and acceptance by others. That it feels like it's not a given. It's something that I need to work for, in a sense. And I feel like that it doesn't matter how much I work on that and I reflect about it, I always notice the seeds of it in any spectrum of my life.
Welcome to the Taking Off the Mask podcast. My name is Ashanti Branch, and I'm really glad you joined us. Today's guest is Marcelo Peterlini. Marcelo is from Brazil. He's one of the directors of the Latin American Leadership Academy, known as LALA, and we've been knowing each other for several years. I am so excited for you to hear this episode. A lot of love in this episode, a lot of brotherly love, a lot of friendly love, a lot of love in general. But one thing I want you to hear in this episode, our first podcast back 2 years ago with Breno was mentored by Marcelo. And so to watch this come full circle, to have had several of young people who have been mentored by LALA and by Marcelo, and to now finally have Marcelo on the show is a great honor for me and for these conversations. He was one of the first people to make masks with young men in Brazil. And we're so excited of the next organizations and people who are going to be making masks there in Brazil. One of our interns for the Million Mask Movement is from Brazil. And so there's a lot of movement that is happening that is connecting the dots and the pieces. And I still don't speak Portuguese yet, but I'm working on it. I'm learning. I know how to say thank you and please. I think I know how to say please. But this conversation, two men coming together, two men who've known each other for a little while, coming together to have a conversation about our masks. And I am excited. And I hope that you are excited. And I hope that you, depending on where you are in your journey of being able to explore your own mask, that you will make a mask. If you're not yet comfortable sharing it out in public with someone, maybe you just go to the website, millionmask.org, make your mask. And maybe the next time you see somebody who you hear is talking about something they're going through, or you feel like their head is full, you say, you know what? Can I invite you to do a quick activity? 1 picture, 6 words, millionmask.org, and send them there. And then maybe if they're interested, ask them if they're willing to talk about it with you. We hope that this will begin to ignite conversations, that this becomes normal, that being a loving man is connected in a way that is beautiful, that is real, that is passionate, that is purposeful. And so with these conversations, we hope that we begin to normalize the fact that men feel, young men, teenagers, boys feel. And yet maybe we've been trained out of us that we are not allowed to feel, that we don't have permission to feel. Keep it to yourself. Somebody's gonna prey on you if you share what you really feel. And there's a post today that if you check out our Instagram, I posted recently about that same thing, an image of somebody saying, don't talk about your feelings. It will be like sharks, like smelling blood, like the fear that we get of what happens when we become vulnerable, when we become more human. But man, I found that it's so much freedom in being able to be more of your full self. So thank you for being a part of this podcast. Thank you for listening. I hope that if you have not rated it or liked it or subscribed, that you would do that. Share it with somebody else who you know could benefit from these conversations. And here's a last thing I'll say, because we're local here in Oakland, Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. If you are here, if you're going to be around for Veterans Day weekend, 11/11/22, it's a beautiful date there, 11/11/22. We invite you to come to the Million Mask Movement launch celebration. So we'll be having a launch party, and we hope you can make it. And if you can't make it, please go to our website or on social media, share it with somebody. Share it with somebody in the world. Maybe share it with somebody who you've been talking this podcast about. Like, I hope the word gets out to the world. And that's what we're inviting people to do. So thank you. We'll look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care, everybody. Peace. Well, Marcelo, I want to welcome you to the Taking Off the Mask podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ashanti. It's such a pleasure to be here. I've been waiting for this moment for a while, so I'm so glad it happened.
Man, me too. I think I've had 2 of your LALA young men on before you. No, 3. Breno, Gustavo. I forgot the other one. It's coming back to me. Yeah, I think I've had 3
Yeah,
of young men on the show, and finally getting you on here.
I think that is the case. And I think Breno, if I'm not mistaken, was maybe like the first episode that you've had also. So it's so cool to have those young men come here even before me and now just being here at the right time. Yeah.
Yeah, Breno was episode number 1.
Yeah.
And it was an accident, kind of like he was coming to meet the young men in our program, and the young men didn't show up. And I was like, what the heck? So we started talking, and I was like, I've been thinking about this idea, and then we just prototyped it, and then now it's 100 and plus episodes later, we're here.
Yeah, I'm so glad it kickstarted with him also.
That was good. It was good. Well, he talked about you in that. We talked about you in that episode, so I'm glad you're here. And how about this? How about you introduce yourself to folks? Tell them who you are, what you want them to know about you, and then we'll jump into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Though I think even like before we hit record, we were talking a little bit about my heart journey. So I think it's hard for me to talk about me without saying of how heart centered I am and how much just like spirituality and seeking truth in life is important to me. And I think I'm just someone that is constantly trying to just like refine my way of being in the world. And the reason for that is not only because I feel like that's what moves me in the world, but also because of the work that I do with youth all over Latin America and how much I feel like I'm constantly being observed by them, and they're kind of like pointing out to me both my qualities and also my flaws. So it kind of like reinforces, my desire to keep refining my being because of them also. So I'm also like an educator, a facilitator, a mentor, and just someone that is devoting my life to youth development. So I think that's just a little bit about who I am and what matters to me today.
Thank you for that. And I think you and I met, and I think just folks to know, Marcelo and I have known each other for a couple of years, several years now. You reached out after the Mask You Live In documentary.
That's right.
And or shortly after, and you were doing work with some young men in Brazil.
Yep.
And then we talked about you making masks with some young men there. This is before it was called the 100,000 Mask Challenge. It was just me doing workshops, I think, at that time.
Yeah.
And then you made masks with those young men, pieces of paper, and they watched the documentary together. And then that's where Breno was in that first room. First room.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that very vividly, though. And I remember that I think the challenge of the masks wasn't happening at the time. And I remember that, like, I felt when I reached out to you and then we talked, I felt so much generosity in you because at the time, like, I knew about the workshops that you're running and I'm starting to organize mine. And I remember that I just wanted to know more as kind of like someone that could guide me into how to create this workshop for young men here in Brazil. And you're just like, Marcelo, I'll give you everything. Like, I'll send you the workshop, everything that you need. Because you said, I remember you saying that like this work is so important to me and I just wanted to spread all over the world. And I feel like that's what you're doing right now also, like 6-7 years later also. So it's just so beautiful to see how this is really expanding not only in the US but all over the world. So
that's I'm so excited when I go back and think about those old messages when we were communicating. I think, and when you showed me those pictures, I was just like, oh, look at that, right? Like what what I envisioned it could be, and I
Mhm.
had no idea how to do it. Sometimes I'm still like, how am I going to grow this thing, right? But now having working with, I have an intern from the LALA group, right? I have an
Mhm.
intern there, and she's doing
Yeah.
amazing work,
Yeah.
and it's so exciting, right? It's like this is the next phase of this work, right? The next
Yeah.
phase is how to meet people who then introduce you to someone, and then I mean, I think when you look at people who have hit amazing success, sometimes it's hard to to know what it feels like when you're like feeling stuck,
Mhm.
because most of my time I'm feeling stuck. Like I'm feeling like,
Mhm.
is this I it's working a little bit, but it's not working at how I want it to work.
Mhm.
And then, but looking 5 years back, you're like, oh wow, look at that. Look at
Yeah.
how that led to that, led to that, led to that. But while it was going through it, I'm like, oh well, cool. I hope he returns the cards. I hope he
Yeah.
shares the masks, right? And so, thank
Mhm.
you, man. Thank
Yeah.
you, and for the work you continue to do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate that, and I think going back to just like the heart center piece at the beginning, because there might be something there, or maybe not for us to explore also, but I think there's something in you also of being at least on my perception, like a very heart centered man that keeps just like following that thread, like to do your own work. And every time that I'm in space with you is almost like, I think I've been in spaces with you and like you were a part of LALA talking to the students that I was working with, that you're like, oh, I didn't prepare anything because I kind of learned that, I just want to, drop into my heart and fall into the moment and just see what comes out, like with the group that is here right now. And I think there's something there that touches people, to follow that part of themselves also. And I think no wonder the work that you're doing is just reverberating so many other people's hearts also. So yeah,
Yeah. Thank you for that. I'm gonna come back to that actually for sure, because
yeah,
I think that part is a thing that's been spinning around in my mind. So we're gonna make a mask, and
yeah.
the way we would do it is, folks, if you want to make a mask out there, Marcelo and I are gonna share our mask publicly, but you can do yours anonymously. You can go to millionmask.org and make a mask, and maybe you'll find somebody in your life to invite them to make a mask too, and you share it with each other. But for today, Marcelo and I are gonna share our masks. So, Marcelo, you already wrote words, and you haven't drawn a
Right.
picture yet. So
Yeah.
so the first step we're going to do is, I'm going to have you draw a picture, draw a mask on your paper somewhere, and I'm going to get my words written. So
So
there's 3 steps to this process. There's a picture, and then there's 6 words. 3 words on the front, the things you gladly let the world see, and then 3 words on the back, the things you often don't let people see. So I'm gonna get my 3 words on the front here, um, and I think I just found the word that I was gonna. Okay, ready?
yes, already.
Okay. All right. Well, I think what we're gonna do is, you get to decide who goes first. Either
Okay.
you want to go first, or you want me to go first. However you decide, and then we'll just kind of alternate sharing. You share the front, and I'll share front, and then back.
Perfect. Um, you can go first if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. So I'm gonna show the picture. This is what I drew. This is the mask I drew today,
Uh-huh.
and these are the words I wrote for the front.
Mm.
And I came from today. Your words today: heart centered, hardworking, and serious.
Hmm.
Heart centered, hardworking, and serious. Um, and these are the ones that came out that's really stand out to me right now in this moment, because
Hmm.
right before this call, I had a meeting with my team, and there were some things that were happening that I had thought I was clear about, and I wasn't so clear about what my expectation was, and we're still kind of in a place of no one has an answer, and I'm getting nervous, and I'm feeling it's connected to the back, right? Because it's seriousness, and I'm realizing like, okay, I think maybe I'm feeling a little animated right now, like in this conversation. Slow down, take a breath, right? Because I feel myself getting worked up a little, and I'm like, right? And it's for my own protection, and it's for my own well-being, and it's for me not letting all that pressure energy force out with words, right? I need to like be in control, be really mindful and thoughtful of the words I'm using, right? Like deep down, I want to yell, like not yell at someone. I just want to yell because I'm frustrated and irritated, but that doesn't help anybody. And that's my old immature self who would yell, right? Because that's what I saw growing up is effective, but it wasn't going to help. And so I had to be just with a series of like heart, like, okay, here's what my concerns are. Here's what I'm worried about. Here's what I'm afraid about, right? Like really owning the feeling, right? Because I was going to go, I almost was going into like, I'm frustrated about this thing, but not owning where it's coming from. It's coming from a place of fear and a place of like worry and a place of like, so anyway, that's what's really present right now. Cause literally it just happened. Right. And so, but being really heart centered, hardworking and serious, that's,
I
that's the front.
appreciate that. And I think it's just to comment on what you said also, I think there's something about just like that movement that you did while you were in the meeting about just taking a breath that it seems so simple, but it's so useful. And when you mention it, you're like, and I was doing that for me, I think yes, and you're doing that for the others also, because that breath allowed you to just show up in a different way for the people around you. And that's something that like I don't like I've learned this type of technique. It's a tool, like it's a tool that you have that you can use at any time. And I teach some meditation with the group of students that I work with, and over again, like some of them just come to me and they're like, Marcelo, I took 3 breaths, before responding to my mom, or 3 breaths before actually going to the test that I was so scared about, and that really helped me center myself. So I just love that you're just sharing that, because it's like I think we also need tools, in the world for how to understand how to navigate these challenging emotions that come up constantly to ourselves. So
Yeah.
thank you for just sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Should I share my front of the mask?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So this is the mask that I drew. If you can see it. Yeah. So that's the
Nice.
mask. and
Nice.
then and then what I wrote was just a loving man, truth, and passion. I think those were the things that come up for me. And when I was actually doing the exercise, though, I was I think love is something that is very centered to my life, and I decided when I was writing down, instead of writing just love, I wrote down loving man, and there was a reason behind that, because it's almost like those two words, they don't come together usually. And I was like, I want to live in a world where these worlds are always together, you know and that they become like friends with each other in a sense. So it came kind of naturally, but when I think about it, it's something that it's very important to me. And yeah, so those are the words. And the truth that I wrote down, I think that's something that I even share in my introduction. I think I've been just seeking truth in life more and more. And I think for such a long time also, I felt like my truth wasn't accepted, like in spaces, or whenever you even try to speak truth, that was denied in a sense. And for me, it has been like a liberation of really being able to just like live in truth and honesty of what really matters to me and my own feelings and internal life. And then the last one is just passion. And I was actually listening to one of your podcasts, and I think you wrote down passion at some point, and I was like, I resonate with that so deeply, just because of the love that I have for my work and for the world as well. And I often just see that passion just like coming out to the world, like very often. Yeah,
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that, man.
of course.
I really and I see that in you. I saw that in you from that first time you sent a message to me, and you were like excited, and I think you were, if I remember right, I don't remember all the details because it was a while back. I think what I remember is that I think you were shocked that I had answered or I had replied.
Yeah.
And I think that um and I was like, yeah, it's my number. That's my number. That's my email, right? Like it's who else is gonna reply? I don't have anybody else here that's like, and I think sometimes from the outside it looks maybe like different. Like there's this whole it's just me and my phone and my computer, right? Just trying to make some change. And so I saw that passion and you being passionate for those young men to like to do whatever it took to try and keep learning yourself, right? I think sometimes people get to the place where they've I already learned everything I need to learn and I'll just do it myself, and to like be seeking for more and for seeking
Yeah.
for I mean that's I think that is really it shows. And so I just appreciate you for that, man.
Yeah, totally. And thank you for reminding about that moment also, because I remember that, like, in sending the message, I remember I sent even through Facebook. I've never shared that with you, but that's a story that I, in every camp that I facilitate and program I facilitate with the students at LALA, I constantly share that story, because we talk so much about every time that you feel moved by someone in the world, just like reach out to them. Like, just reach out. There's no reason why not to. And especially if you're young, like, people will feel so glad that you appreciate their work. And I think in that moment, I wasn't even working with Lala at the moment. I was doing work with
Yeah.
young men. And I think your response for me was just like an affirmation of, like, yeah, you're in the right path, because this, like, Ashanti that is here in the documentary, that seems like someone is unreachable, like, it's here, like, you're gonna be in a Zoom call with him, and right now we're here, like, talking. So it's so crazy how, like, feeling moved, like, acting by what really moves you in the world can open up, like, doors to yourself that you have no idea where it can lead you. So yeah.
Mm. I heard somebody say a word yesterday or 2 days ago. I'm trying to think if I can come back to it. So I want to say it was like it's coming. Not convergence. Is it not convergence? It's convergence. Is it convergence? Oh, it's gonna come back to me. But it's like the idea is that when you feel like this is what I'm like it's connected to me in my soul, in my heart, in my head, like all the pieces are like feeling like I'm in alignment with what I should be doing, right? It's like that. It's like really like a clarity,
Yeah.
right? And things may not be a straight line to the thing you ultimately
Right.
want, but it's all the time like a big swirl of yarn that pops out the other side. And people, when they look at it, they're like, "Oh, you got from there to there." They miss the fact that you went through the tumbler cycle,
Yeah.
in life to get to that other end. And when they draw a straight line from the beginning to the end, then it's like, "Oh, that was no problem." I don't want you to don't just read the bio, because the
Yeah.
bio is only a highlight reel, right? The
Exactly.
bio is, oh, he did this and he did that and he did that, and you're like, man, I can never do that, right? And I think realizing that that's why when people read my bio, I always try and say, well, let me just tell you what happened this morning, because I need you to know that that I don't live in the bio world. I live in the real world where things are happening all the time, right? That are
Yeah.
not highlights. The
Yeah.
highlights, that's the highlight reel. And let me tell you about what happened behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
Because I want people to know that it can often feel unreachable when you
Exactly.
only hear the highlights. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think,
Okay.
even before moving forward, though, like, I think there's something about, like, not only seeing the highlights, but also, like, because it's not a straight line, like, it is like an up and down. And I
Yeah.
think we actually, at least in my own experience of life, like, you really prove yourself, like, you really prove your leadership and, like, the human being that you really are in the most challenging moments that not necessarily people really talk about or they see in the bio. And those might be the most impressive times that you might have had in your life, when you're so insecure to start something and you decide to do it anyways. You're so fearful about, like, a conversation or a meeting or, like, talking to a donor, and you did it anyways. And I think we definitely need to talk more about those things. And I even think, like, what you're doing with the podcast is kind of that, like, it's just, well, let's just chat man to man and see what's up, like, in your life right now. It's a conversation, and I love that. I think that reveals so much about who we really are in the end of the day.
Yeah, I like that. And I wonder if, like, as you think about that, like, I think if I was to like recreate my resume, like, it would look like a, if I could try and draw it, but I'm gonna try and sketch it out. I was like, it'll be this, and then it'll be like all of this, and then it'll be like today, right? It'll be like, okay, here's where it started. I
Exactly.
was born, and then that's all that stuff, and that's a highlight over there, there's a highlight over there, a highlight over there,
Yeah.
a bunch of other mess, and then here's today, right? Like,
Yeah.
kind of like this this journey of like, oh yeah, there's a whole lot of mess inside that bio, that resume you looking at, but there's there's some highlights in there, right? I
Exactly.
pull out the highlights of the chaotic mess that have got me to
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
I think
even
I'm gonna.
maybe, yeah, no, I love that. And even maybe today you might be in that mess, because it's not an end point, like you
That's
might be in the middle of another mess that is going on.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
There's no, there's definitely. I just had one right before the call. Like, I had one at a. Like, in the spin cycle, and then you just, what we do, we get good at putting those masks on. We put on the smile, and we
Yeah.
just like, okay, everything's fine, right? And I think,
Yeah.
how often does that part cause us, definitely men and young men and boys, to like not deal with the things we need to deal with because
Exactly.
we've been told that we always have to keep it good. Everything's
Yeah.
good. I'm fine. Everything's okay. I'm happy. I'm athletic. I'm smart. I'm strong. I got money. I got girls. I got cars. I got things.
Yeah.
But if I don't have a place of connecting to my heart, I think it's um, really powerful. Man, okay. Look, okay. So I'm gonna tell you one more thing, because there was this post that I saw this morning, which I found myself really engaged with. There was a picture of a man in the water with a shark, and the post said, uh, "Sharing your feelings is like putting blood in the water with a shark." Right, and this channel was supposed to be like a motivational channel, right? Like, and it says, the tagline is, I share motivational messages so people can have lead their best life, right? And the idea was that when I read it first, I'm like, what in the ridiculous nonsense madness is this, right? And then when I realized, I'm like, why am I feeling that way about this post? And I was like, well, and what deep down is because that's how I was raised. I was raised that you don't share your feelings because it's like chum in the water for sharks. Like, it will cause you to get eaten alive. And I realized that because I'm not there anymore, when I see it, when I hear it, it disturbs me, right? It's like, oh, that's right. I bought into that messaging for most of my life. Like, this, more of my life, I bought into that messaging than this current philosophy that I believe, right? But if I wasn't willing to evolve my philosophy, then I would probably still be acting like that. I'll still be operating like, I'm good, I'm cool, I'm fine, I'm not telling nobody nothing, you don't need to know. I'm not having nobody, use it against me, whatever. And I think that I have learned so much on the other side of this that has been helpful for me. And
Yeah.
I will continue doing it until I don't think it's helpful for maybe for me or for other people who say that it can be helpful to them, So
Yeah.
yeah. So thank you for, man. It's been coming up, right? It's been coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and I think the thing that comes up for me is that like this is a practice, right? Like it's a practice of constantly refining the way that you can notice your feelings and actually verbalize them. Because even in that moment that you're describing of like noticing that post, you're like, wait a second, like what? Like you went inside and you're like, why am I feeling that way?
Yeah.
So there's like a practice that you have been doing that you automatically, like you see something happening on the outside and then you're like, wait a second, why is this generating this weird feeling inside of me? And what does that mean? And then you became less reactive. You're just like increasing your awareness and friendship with all the emotions that emerge inside of you. And then you can make more sense out of them instead of just reacting without even noticing them sometimes that they're actually there. So,
That's right.
yeah.
Okay. All right. We're in it. Well, I think I'm gonna shoot the back now, but and
Yeah.
it's connected to the front because I think what I talked about being that frustration that was coming out a little while ago. like being really dedicated and passionate and like really like wanting to get stuff done, uh, it comes at, at this journey,
Mm,
a deep fear of failure, deep doubt, maybe even sometimes self doubt. But then not being effective is a new one.
mm,
And it's the first time I've ever written this. And I made a post about this the other day because I was thinking about my coach asked me, I told him my head was full of stuff. Like I was full. He's my coach has been on paternity leave, so he's been out for 6 weeks. So my first talk with him in like over 6-7 weeks, and I was just like, just stuff is filling up, right? And he asked me, he said, "Okay, wait, um, what is your personal effectiveness system?" And I'm like, I mean, those words sound interesting together. Um, what is that? You know what I'm saying? What is a personal effectiveness system, right? Like, and he said, "Well, where do you keep track of all the stuff that you got to get done?" And I said, "Well, I got notebooks, I got my head, I got my text messages, I got about 50 tabs open on this screen right now." And he was like, "I think you need a more effective personal effectiveness system." And that for me, when he started describing what it is, I realized, oh, you know what? I had one when I was in engineering. When I was an engineer building these big buildings, I had to keep track of the electricity and the mechanical and the painting and the drywall and the ceiling. I had to keep track of all these things, and I couldn't be running around in circles looking for information. I had to have it all in one place. And when I became an educator, I just kind of got away from it just for the nature of schools and teaching. But man, I have now, over the last, literally the last week, I have like really tapped into like reminding myself of what I had to do to build big buildings. I'm building different things right now. I'm trying to build like, you know, heartfelt people in our community and people who know how to tap in. And I got to the limit of what I could capture in my head, right? I think what I was starting to feel was my dream is so big right now that I used to be able to just keep stuff in my mind. I could remember stuff, remember names off the bat. And now it's like, why am I not remembering these things, right? Because there's too many of them to remember for me personally. And now I'm back into a system that's starting to work, and it's starting to make my brain feel a lot freer, which is actually an odd feeling because I'm like, I'm getting all this stuff out of my head, and so I don't have to come back. I don't have to keep it like locked in here. I can like, man, and I think, I mean, literally, it's still new, so I'm not fixed. I'm not solved yet. The problem's not solved yet, but the solution is coming. I can feel it, and I feel really thankful. And so that's a new one. I've never written that word before in the back, and I never would have ever said I'm not being effective. I think I'm effective in a lot of ways, but I'm also knowing I don't talk much about when I'm not feeling effective.
Yeah.
I keep that part to myself. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
And I'm excited to be talking about it because I think I was just carrying it as like what's wrong with me, as opposed to like I just need a better system, and
Yeah.
that's rewarding, and it's stress relieving to like
Yeah.
not make me the blame of it, but me of a person of a solution that's on the way. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I feel you. What were you gonna say? You're
no.
gonna.
I'll say I'm complete with that. Thank you.
Yeah. 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 Of course. Yeah, I even wrote down because I think I need some of that also. So I'm gonna definitely go back to that, to the personal effective system, because as you were speaking about like million tabs open and a bunch of to-do lists, I was like, yeah, this is my life, and I do feel how that is getting a little out of hand. So I'm definitely gonna reflect that back, and I was also like even like reflecting a little bit as you were speaking that like the when you're talking about keeping everything in your head, you know,
Yeah,
like it seems something that I don't know if that maybe like in as you were growing up, that was something that was actually, you know, like seen as something that almost like a trade related to just man, they just, you know, like you just keep track of everything, everything's in your head, you're in control of everything, like you don't need help, like you
that's
don't
right.
need like help of like an effective system, or like even I think you're going like was a coach that supported you with that, like you don't need a coach to support you with that, like
Mm,
and there's something about that it was resonating with me about like, oh yeah, you might need help, you know, there's something in your life that it's getting a little out of control, And it's easy for us to just like keep going, keep going, keep hammering in the same place and just like hitting our heads.
That's right.
And you're bleeding and we keep hitting our head. Like we don't ask for help. And I think there's something there about being exercise also. Like, how can you help me here? Are there tools that you have in your life that you can share with me here so I can be more effective or more loving or whatever you need in your life that you're noticing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof. Oof. And being willing to ask that question to somebody, right?
Exactly.
Being that willing to be vulnerable and say, how have you learned to be so effective? Like you imagine people, I mean, the billionaires in the world and the people who have run 1,000 people companies, they only have 24 hours in a day too. How are they so much more effective with the 24 hours?
Yeah.
I'm starting to and then this just a small reminder is like, okay, like man. So yeah, I think and asking, I don't think it's a question I would have ever thought to ask a leader if I met a leader. Like, how did you learn to be so effective? Right? Like, I mean, I think it's a great question. I just don't know that that's a question that I would have at the top of my tongue. But now it's like that's what I'm looking for as I think about if people who I look up to who are doing big things in the world. Like, so anyway, it's beautiful. It's been a beautiful moment of like 1 week of a new revelation, right? That's like, ooh.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of like not thinking I needed a coach. I've never had a coach until I got this one grant that provided me a coach, and I'm like, where have you been all my life? Where, oh my God, I needed this 10 years ago, but
Yeah.
not knowing and
Yeah.
not knowing what I didn't know is now
Yeah.
being really clear. So yeah, man.
Yeah. And I think it's so
Mm,
like I grew up as an athlete, like playing tennis and always surrounded by coaches, you know. And it's so natural for like
mm,
in sports in general for you to have a coach who like, has been there before and can help you just refine your game in a sense.
that's
But
right.
when you think about our personal lives, that's not something that comes natural, to actually have a personal coach that is supporting you in live a more fulfilling life or a more effective life or whatever you feel like you need in your life. And as you're saying, like, where have have they been? Because we know the difference that it makes. Yeah.
That's right. And I'll say, well, I'm gonna come back to this part when you talk about the coaches because I'm gonna come back
Yeah.
to the athlete thing. But I'm gonna
Yeah.
let you go ahead and show you the back of
Yeah. Yeah.
yours,
Of
and then
course.
I'll.
Of course.
Yeah,
So let
man.
me. So I wrote down. I don't know if you can read here, but I wrote down sadness, melancholy, and
Mm,
then prove myself slash belonging.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think starting with the last one though, I even add belonging while you're talking because I think part of the constant necessity of just like have to prove myself everywhere, I have to prove myself as an educator, have to prove myself even like with the qualities that I wrote down, like of a loving man, like prove myself as a loving man. All it's almost like it's ingrained in my brain of like this necessity to keep proving myself all the time. And when I really look deeper in what's behind that necessity, it's actually just a necessity to feel love, to feel a sense of belonging and acceptance by others. That it feels like it's not a given. It's something that I need to work for, in a
Yeah.
sense. And
Yeah.
and I feel like that it doesn't matter how much I work on that and I reflect about it. I always notice the seeds of it in any spectrum of my life.
Yeah.
And I think the sadness and melancholy. Am I pronouncing melancholy correctly?
Yeah. I was gonna ask you. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I think it's I think those are just like a current moment that I'm living in general. I've just been, yeah, just noticing more days in my life where I just feel sad. Like don't feel
Mm,
like motivated to do things. Don't feel like a lot of energy flowing in my body to actually, yeah, bring to the world the things that I really believe in. And yeah, I think it's just something present. Even today, like it's something that in the morning was more alive, and then in some conversations that shifts. And right now, it's not that present, like in my body. But I know as soon as we leave, we might come back. It's almost like a little. cloud that it's constantly around me, and
Mm,
I can, just notice that it's with me all the time in this moment of life. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that that part right there, when you talked about the cloud,
Yeah.
like in the moments where like something amazing happens, right, in our work and our goals and our dreams, like
Yeah.
something a milestone, or it wasn't a planned milestone. It's like, oh, we got a grant, we got connected to this one funder who potentially would support us. It's not a yes yet, but it's a maybe. But the in the maybe, it's exciting, right?
Yeah.
I think those moments are like these moments that have the little shining of light through the clouds, and then
Exactly.
you're back to like that's what I feel in the worry piece, the worry, the behind the doubt, the fear of failure. And when you talked about the idea of being an athlete, and an athlete around them are coaches and trainers, I heard another nonprofit leader last week say to me, she said, running an organization is like being a high performance athlete. And here's two things that high performance athletes have. They have a lot of trainers and coaches, and they have a lot of rest, because they know that the only way they can be at their peak when they need to be is to be well rested and well coached and trained. And oftentimes, as leaders of organizations, especially of nonprofit organizations, you almost expect it to like have already figured it out somehow. Like you're supposed to like keep working, work harder, work harder, work harder.
Yeah.
There's a mindset of like the exhausted executive
Yeah.
director or executive of a nonprofit.
Yeah.
It's almost like if somebody told you like, oh man, you know what, I feel so well rested, I feel like I feel like I'm on vacation, right? And you'll be like, do you work? Like, like we don't expect somebody in the service work to feel
Right.
rested.
Right.
Unfortunately, I mean, and this is the line of people I talk to. Not everybody believes that, but what I have believed in the past, and I'm like, what would it be like to be like, man, I slept 8 hours last night. I slept one third of my day away, as opposed to this idea that I have to work until midnight and then wake up at 5 a.m. and then go to the next day. Like almost an idea of like unsustainable type of work
Yeah.
in the service of people who need the most of our energy,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
think that is something that I have been something that came up to me when you were talking about
Yeah.
about that cloud. And I think trying to find that the light and the bright on the other side of that cloud, like, if you ever got on a plane and you flew and you saw cloudy and then you kind of flew through the clouds, and when you popped
Yeah.
out, you're like, what the heck, where'd the blue sky come from? Well, it was already there. It was just, you just couldn't see it at the moment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's like, oh, the sky is always blue.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
But it's easy to be like, no, it's not. It's cloudy today.
Yeah.
You're like, no, but there's blue on the other side of it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. The two things I want to comment there, Ashanti. Like the first one in relation to the cloud, I think is exactly that. Like even though at moments when it feels like the cloud is there, like a dark cloud, there is a sun after it, like behind it. And sometimes you just get so stuck like in that cloud that you won't leave. Like when you're in a sad moment or in a moment of suffering or pain, it feels like it's never ending.
yeah,
And I think the work that you're trying to do, that I'm trying to do in developing more awareness of those emotions, is also to understand the transitory nature that they have also. Yeah, the cloud is here, but it will pass. Like you will pass, and you can learn from it, but you don't have to be, to get caught into it, in the chaos of it at times, knowing that the sun is there outside of it. And that for me, like in my own process, was a huge realization, that yeah, it's transitory. Let's notice, let's welcome it, these feelings. Let's see what they have to teach us, or to, the signal that they have for our lives, and also know that they will pass. So you don't have to react to it. And then the athlete thing, I think what you're saying, I have never thought about that though, but it makes so much sense because like elite athletes, they sleep so, like Roger Federer, for example. I think I read an interview with him that he sleeps like 10 hours a day. Like he retired right now, the tennis player, like number one in the world.
yeah,
And it's crazy, like to think about that for like someone that, like an executive or a leader in a nonprofit. And I think and the other thing that what you're saying is that, like, usually these athletes, they have a team for them. Like, and this is the question that I get so much from actually my students. They're like,
Yeah.
who's taking care of you? Like, you're taking care of
Mm,
so many people. Like, you're just like
mm,
pouring your heart into the work, and it's very emotional work,
oof.
and draining at times. And then they're like, who's taking care of you?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay. And I think
Mm,
that's when they reflect back at me the things that I need to work on myself also, and having a coach, having a therapist, having someone that is helping you with your health, with your well-being, like, that's so important. And we are elite athletes in the work that we're trying to do in the world, and we need that type of support.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
When the mentor becomes the mentored, right?
exactly.
That's what happens, right? When they
Exactly. Yeah.
reflect back on you and they say to you what you've been saying to them,
Yeah.
and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll take that. I'll take
Yeah.
that. I'll take that. Yeah.
I had a good friend of mine that used to say, we used to do work together with the youth also, and he used to say that usually what you're telling others is what you need to hear the most, and you really hear that when they reflect that back at you, like really telling you, yeah, there's
Oh,
no escape there.
oh, that's so real. There's one young man in our work right now who's running a club,
Uh-huh.
and he has some shyness, and he would avoid some of things that are like really important tasks, and as I find myself trying to support him and encourage him, I'm like in the moment, like, you are saying this is what you need to be saying to yourself right now, right? Like, and the other day I told him, I said, you know, and I just had to really be clear with him. I said, I want you to know that I'm not the best at this part, but this is what I'm seeing in this situation, right? Like the avoiding of the hard phone call, the avoiding of having to have that conversation with a team member who needs to be talked to about something, but I'd rather not have hard phone calls, right? I'd rather just have the
Hmm.
fun phone calls, right? And
Yeah.
the thank you calls to donors, and I don't want to have a corrective conversation with a team member who needs to step up in some way, right? And I'm realizing when I'm talking to him and being frustrated and down on himself, and I'm like, hey, you're growing as a leader. He was like, I'm a bad leader, and I'm like, okay, well, slow down there. I mean, you can accept the truth and also know that you're working hard and getting better, right? Like, and knowing that I sometimes I want to hear that said to me, like, because I don't always feel like a good leader. I don't always feel like I'm doing the best job that I would want to be doing. I'm doing the best that I can, but sometimes you just want to know that somebody sees it and they feel it, right? And I think that is so when I hear it in him as a 15-year-old who is like trying to just lead a little club that he's starting in his school, and I say these words to him, it's almost like, oh, I should record this conversation for myself and play it back with a different voice, right? So it's like I'm playing it back in somebody else's words, right? But it's what I need to hear to myself sometimes. And
Yeah.
I agree with you. I thank you for saying that because I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes I resonate so much with that. I think we all need a little bit of appreciation all the time, and
Yeah.
just recognition that, like, you're doing good. Hey, Ashanti, you're doing a good job, man. Like, I'm
Yeah.
proud of you. And those things are sometimes the thing. Like, when I write down, like, I'm trying to prove myself. I'm trying to prove myself for that. Like, as soon
Yeah.
as you say that, then it's like that part of me that is trying to prove myself, it relaxes a little bit. That is like, oh, okay, I'm doing my
Yeah.
work here. I'm feeling more accepted right now. I'm feeling more seen. I think, like, in the work that I do with youth, we talk so much about, like, the power of simply being seen for who you really are, and telling someone, appreciating someone for something that they did that you feel like was important, then invites them to do that again, and it increases their sense of self-esteem and trust in themselves also. So it's
Mm,
really beautiful to hear that.
man. Man. Marcelo, I want to tell you, I see you and I'm proud of you. And I want to tell you that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I
Yeah.
see you, brother, and I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
I
Mm,
yeah, that's real.
mm.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I'm so glad to be working with one of your youngsters this year, Andrea. Man, I want you to know Andrea is doing some amazing,
Mm,
amazing work. And
mm,
so I just, the work that you've done in this organization to inspire
mm,
young people, I
mm,
appreciate you. And thank you for the work you're going to continue doing to inspire young people.
mm,
And, and their work, his work is going to change the world. So uh, keep an eye out today. I'm gonna post a video of a young man. He interviewed a young man in Brazil,
all right.
and we're gonna post it today. It's a Million Mask Movement, like our first piece of like on the street interviewing. And like
Mm,
he's done the interview before I even have, so
yeah.
he's already he's already like challenging me. So, I mean,
Uh,
like, so I'm super excited. So thank you for
yeah.
the work, and you know I I feel complete. Is there anything more you want to say here? Man,
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk forever,
Yeah.
but I think in this conversation, I feel really appreciated, and
Mm,
I feel I appreciate you being willing to share those
mm,
words of encouragement for everyone listening, because there's somebody out there who doesn't have a person to talk about this stuff with, right?
yeah. Yeah.
And so, is there anything else that you want to say right now, brother?
Um, I think I feel complete also, Ashanti. Just I feel very relaxed in the conversation, and I want you to know also that I deeply see you. I'm proud of you, and I love you very deeply. Like it's a pleasure, huge pleasure to be here, but more than anything, just to have you as a friend. Yeah.
Man, I love you too, brother. I appreciate you. And I'm
Yes.
and I'm telling you, like I tell the story, that story when you so the story you said you tell, I tell the story of of you calling and then meeting and then doing the workshop and then the first podcast, Breno. Like I just it's like amazing as you look
It
back
is amazing.
and so and I'm still trying to learn Portuguese. I mean, I should if I had been doing more homework, I should have learned Portuguese in these last 6 years, but I I have not done my homework. So
Yeah.
I can say obrigado and I can say thank you,
That's
brother.
good. Yeah.
I'm gonna
Thank
get
you.
better. I'm gonna get better. So
Yeah. And please
man,
know that you're always welcome here in Brazil anytime that you want to come. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I want to come when I can like lead, but I think that's overthinking, right? I have to come when I can lead a workshop myself. No, I don't. I need to empower some young folks in Brazil to lead workshops, and I just come as a person
Yeah.
who waves at the audience and says "obrigado." Right? I don't need to say much more than that. Like the end goal is to inspire others to do the work in their community. So I think that's my part of like not overthinking it either, not having to do it all. So I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
that next piece too. So I'm looking forward to getting back to Brazil. I will be back soon,
Yeah. I know you.
man.
Uh, beautiful friend.
Right on. Well, is there anything? Is there like for any young person out there who is want to look at the organization that you're with? Is there
Yeah.
anything you want information you want to share with folks?
Yeah.
And then or some of the work that you're working on
Of
before we
course.
close? Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. So we were talking about LALA, and this is just the acronym for Latin American Leadership Academy. So I work for this nonprofit in Latin America we've been up for 5 years now, and we're just trying to do work with youth leaders in Latin America between 14 to 20 years old. So I think, yeah, if you want to know more about our work, just go to our website and reach out to us. We just have been devoted to this work for 5 years, and there's so much more to do. Yeah. And if
And
you
you're
want to
doing
connect
amazing.
at any point, just reach out to me because I love talking to youth, especially, but any human connection, that's where I thrive.
Yeah, and if you fund work out in Latin America, please like go to
Yeah.
their website. We'll put it in the show notes. If you are a developer who is helping working in Latin America, please reach out to Lala. I'm so thankful to have had a part in working with some of their young people, and I have an intern from them right now, which is
Yeah.
definitely helping ever forward in such a big way. So, brother Marcelo, again, a pleasure to see you.
Yes.
Thank you, brother.
Take
And
action too.
And folks, listen, Marcelo and I shared our mask here publicly, and you don't have to do that. You don't have to go out and publicize a podcast or share your mask, but you can do it anonymously at millionmask.org. We invite you to tell someone about it if this episode has inspired you. Please share it with someone. If you know someone in Latin America who you want to hear these words, please share it with them as well. And we hope that this movement will continue to grow. And we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next time. The Taking Off the Mask podcast is produced by Ryan Louie. Graphics are by Kelly Wong. And a special thanks to the team at Ever Forward, Vanessa Cortez and Choque Alan Alvarez. We'd like to thank everyone who's been a part of the creation of this podcast as we cross the 100th episode milestone and begin the work to the next 100. We hope that everyone who's been a part knows that they're a part of the Taking Off the Mask family. And we look forward to you being a part of it as well. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe, write a 5-star review, and share, as we look forward to continuing to have conversations that matter. Stay tuned for the relaunch of the Million Mask movement on 11/11/22. That's November 11th of 2022. There's a math problem in there. You can find out more by visiting everforwardclub.org and following us on social media. Take care, and we'll see you soon.